What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. I want to talk a little bit about the next election because we know it's creeping up within about the next year or less, depending on how things go when the House of Commons reconvenes in the fall. Now, as speculative and as naive as I may be, hoping for an earlier election, what I will say is that, in all honesty, I really hope that things ride themselves out, despite the fact that gives Trudeau more time to destroy Canada. I would love to see him lose in good old-fashioned humiliation when it comes to the amount of ridings he's going to lose in the next election. But one topic that always seems to creep in when we talk about the next possible election, when you look at the summer, when you look at events like Cian Bexte going over to Tofino to interview Trudeau saying your polling numbers are slipping, you're dropping farther and farther and farther. Why are you still running? People have called for your resignation. And he said he's confident he's going to stick in his next election. He's going to ride it out. He thinks that Canadians will change their mind when it comes to Justin Trudeau. Many people, including channels like The Pleb, that have cited that there's going to be some form of an NDP coalition bloc government that forms to shut down the Conservatives in the next election and keep their power. I'm here to tell you today that it doesn't look like things are far off. If you ever watch Ledrew 3-minute interviews, these are fantastic, quick interviews. I'm going to show a little bit of this interview that came from former Liberal MP Dan Matteague, who talks about what's happening in the next election. And when you look at what happened in France with Marcon, this is going to be very telling as to how Trudeau plans to win the next election, or at least maybe why he's sticking around. Let's take a look at this interview and then we'll discuss. But let's get into where these problems are going to ride and where they feel, even again, a former Liberal MP feels Justin Trudeau is going to essentially cheat and install his government into the next election.
Longtime Liberal MP before it was the Justin Party. Some Liberals are saying, you know what, he has abandoned Jews in Canada and he is going after the Muslim vote. And someone told me they're pinpointing each riding. Don't worry about policy. Don't worry about whether they have good government or not. We're just going to try to nail certain ridings to win the next election. And you're telling me the NDP is a big part of it.
Yes, very much. I would think that the best way is what Macron did in France to prevent the possibility of his parliament disappearing in front of him to Marine Le Pen. What he did is he basically withdrew candidates in certain areas. Other parties did the exact same thing on the center to left. That doesn't just mean the Greens. It doesn't just mean the Liberals. It doesn't just mean the NDP. It means a coalition among those three parties in various ridings. So what's obviously going to happen?
It's not a written coalition. It's a coalition in practice. So in certain ridings, there's going to have to be a deal between the NDP and the Liberals.
And there will be.
That's right. Liberals, you have a better chance to win this one, so we aren't going to run by you.
Correct. That's the only.
So right there, again, they're breaking it down. And again, this is a former Liberal MP bringing in his expertise, saying there will be an agreement. There will be a non-written coalition that we're going to see. And again, rumors have been speculating all summer that this was going to be the case. Again, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, it doesn't seem highly unlikely given Trudeau's current coalition with Jagmeet Singh. Let's continue.
Hope of salvation the NDP and the Liberal have of not being annihilated in the next election. And by annihilation, that would be less than 50 seats for the Liberals, less than 30 seats for the NDP.
But that's completely unprincipled.
Yes, it is, of course.
To have two parties, if this was two businesses saying, you know what, let's just get our prices together here, they'd be given a $5 billion fine.
But they've done it for the past 3 years under our watchful eye. And it does mean that the Liberal Party will cease to be the party that it once was. It will become very much an apparatus of the left in which the NDP and the Liberals will cooperate, not just cooperation on a political scale and in Parliament, but cooperate in the hustings. There will be no NDP candidate where there is a Liberal incumbent and vice versa.
Dan, do you think that if that becomes the case and it becomes obvious to Canadians, do you think that there's going to be blowback? They're going to say, you know what, you guys are a bunch of unprincipled scuzzbags and we're not going to give you our votes.
Well, they've been doing this for some time. The NDP and the Liberals have cooperated to the extent of even covering up what appears to be significant examples of corruption.
Yeah, no, so parliamentary committees, they say, well, we want to know where that $300 million went, and the NDP and the Liberals block it.
Yeah, they do every single time.
Now, while we're on that subject, when you think about the reports that have come out about Chinese interference, Chinese corruption, people who have sold out Canada's secrets, again, we don't know who was involved in that because only the leaders of those parties were allowed to read said documents and had to swear off the ability to tell anybody about it. They had to say, no, it's parliamentary privilege. We're not allowed to talk about it. We know who was involved, but the public can never know while their tax dollars are funneled in here who is essentially compromised in our government and who is not, while they still hold chairs within Parliament. The biggest problem here is what we're talking about, and it's nailed by Ledru very well here, is that it's two businesses. This is like running a monopoly. It's essentially two corporations coming in saying, hey, if we price fix, we can just run the whole show and essentially have a monopoly on the Canadian voting public. The biggest problem when you look at the NDP Liberals, especially NDP, is that they have the unions on their side. They have union workers when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to teaching, when it comes to any kind of medical staff. It's all underneath the guise of QP and other union heads that push and push and push to get different political views out there rather than focus on what's best for their workers. It's a politically run system, and this is where we're going to see kind of things unfold into a corrupt-like state that even as Ledru asks, are people going to get enough that they'll say, hey, you're a bunch of scuzzbags, we're not going to vote for you. When you look at the numbers, when you look at what happens in Alberta. The amount of people that are now talking negatively about Danielle Smith, saying, well, I don't trust her. I don't think she should continue forward. She made one comment about people doubling the population of Alberta by 2050. Now, all of a sudden, I don't trust her. I've asked often, what's the alternative? Well, the alternative is the NDP. It's Naheed Nenshit. And essentially what's going to happen now is he's going to become a Liberal. You're going to have Liberals running provinces like Alberta. It's really sad. It's really sad to see. Let's continue with the clip and then we'll discuss.
And so my way of thinking is that the Greens have ceased to become relevant. All their policies have been taken up by Stephen Guilbeault and other radicals. The NDP will simply line in with the Liberals and it will become the new Liberal Party, the new Liberal Democratic Party. However they style it. The only ones denying this right now are those who are not watching this, and they better be very careful because it fits right into the narrative. It's the only way they can have a hope of salvation in the next election.
Dan McTague, thank you for opening your eyes. 3 minutes.
This is, again, very, very concerning that when we go over Canada's future, there's a very high probability of seeing an LDP party forming out of the Liberals and the NDP. What is surprising to me is guys like Jagmeet Singh that don't understand or don't see that Trudeau is simply just trying to absorb your party. He's just trying to swallow up everything that people like Jack Layton took so long to try and build. That when you remember back in the Jack Layton days, I mean, the NDP had some screwballed ideas, but they were more for the working class people. In fact, some of the ideas that the NDP gave off back in those days actually had me considering, well, do they really have our best interests in heart? Are they really for the working class? Now all the NDP are is essentially hostage holders to Canada's economy, Canada's way of life, and keeping a corrupt individual like Justin Trudeau in power while also spinning the wheel of corruption themselves. Jagmeet Singh can't even tell you what the difference is between a bag of potatoes and a bag of apples. I mean, this man has no business being in charge of a party, let alone Canada's future. When it comes to Alberta, again, my biggest concern is that if we see the NDP and Liberals merge together into a party and they start doing this Napoleonic divide and conquer statue where we're not gonna go in a riding where you have an incumbent coming in. I mean, essentially they're running a monopoly in terms of how the government works and how things are going to move forward. It's very damning for Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, especially given their numbers. And if they get the Bloc on board, where are we going to sit with Canada's future? Does this mean that provinces like Alberta are going to press further for secession from Canada? Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Do you think this is the beginning of the end for Canada? Do you think that Justin Trudeau is essentially going to cheat his way to another victory and that's why he's sticking around? Personally, in my heart of hearts, that's what I believe is happening, or else he would have seen the writing on the wall a long time ago. It has nothing to do with his hubris or his narcissistic behavior. It's merely that he has a plan, and we've already seen that plan unroll and be successful in places like France. I think that Canada's in big trouble. Let me know what you guys think down below if it's your first time here. I hope this video's earned your subscription. While you're hitting that button, don't forget to hit your bell for notifications. Join me live here on the channel each and every Friday night for Friday Night Fringe, our live streaming show where not only myself, but my lovely wife, Mrs. Fringe, sits in with us to talk about all the crazy things that have happened this week in politics, all the great things coming up in the world that we're aware of that should be coming to the channel shortly, and some back and forth within the community. It's always great to hear what you guys have to say outside of making these videos, and both myself and Mrs. Fringe look forward to hearing from you guys each and every Friday night, again, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, here on the channel. I look forward to seeing each and every one of you there this upcoming Friday, and hope you guys enjoyed this video and have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.